Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today, even if it is only virtually. My name is Tanya Vlahovic. I'm a head of developer ecosystem at eBay, and I also lead architect for eBay public APIs. In addition, I'm leading the public API governance team and the overall API decomposition and namespace definition. I'm an active contributor to eBay's technical standards and patterns related to internal microservices and publicly exposed APIs. To make it simple, I'm involved in anything related to public APIs and large partner integrations at eBay. We live in a connected digital age. This is where APIs play an integral role. APIs are now the foundation on which modern business is built. They are the building blocks of the digital economy and an essential part of growing a successful business. You could build so many different things. It just depends on how you put the blocks together. APIs are for businesses of all shapes and sizes. I heard someone recently saying that only if you're operating a business from a cave, you don't need APIs. In our case, APIs are the front door to our marketplace platform. They enable our business to expand into new contexts, allow third parties to extend their value proposition, and also bring their customers to us. Our partners trust us, so our APIs must be reliable digital assets that enable growing a successful business. So we give our partners access to data and capabilities at scale, and it's on them to be inventive to create fantastic buying and selling experiences for their users. In our time today together, there are 3 areas that I would like to share with you. 20th anniversary of eBay's developers program, standards and governance that we have established throughout our journey to revamp our API program, and finally, how our portfolio looks now. eBay enables global trade. We have more than 1 billion live active listings on our marketplaces. eBay is an exporting platform. 57% of our business is international. We have 174 million buyers coming from 190 markets. Velocity on eBay is remarkable. A watch is purchased every 5 seconds in the United States. A makeup product is sold every 2 seconds in UK. A smartphone is purchased every 16 seconds in Germany. And a car part is purchased every 6 seconds in Australia. Our third-party developers make 150 to 250 million API calls per hour. This is just to illustrate the scale we operate at. Basics of trade were established 150,000 years ago. So we are just translating this all into a digital model, exposing interfaces to the business. As simple as that. Okay, I'm skipping here all of the complexities a global marketplace brings. But this is all about translating a mental model into a digital model, basically APIs, so that developers understand it. And of course, with no offering surprises. APIs are not supposed to offer surprises to developers. This year, we are celebrating 20th anniversary of the eBay Developers Program. It's been 20 years with APIs and Developers Program for us. The first set of API capabilities were launched back in 2000 to enable sellers to manage their eBay business at scale. These were SOAP-based APIs, and originally the API access was granted to a limited number of licensed partners and developers. Then we later moved to buyer experience. All of these APIs are still heavily used, and they brought a lot of value to both us and our customers, buyers and sellers. But they also show their age. And that's why we decided to revamp the program back in 2016 and deliver a new family of modern and consistent RESTful APIs. So we had an experience of 15 years dealing with APIs. That's long enough to learn many lessons. When we started our journey to revamp the program, we agreed on 3 basic principles for our new APIs: to define boundaries, to have a consistent vocabulary, and finally, to define standards and specs. And this is really applicable to any software component. eBay is a marketplace where 2 main actors are buyers and sellers. So it totally makes sense to logically group capabilities around their needs. Buyers and sellers see main marketplace entities in a bit different way. And that's what we followed, the bounded context. Sell and buy use cases have their own bounded contexts. In the API world, there is no such thing as one size fits all. There is no sharing here. My neighbor came to my house, took my plate, and we share it. That's for sure not how the APIs should be organized. APIs should do one thing and do it well, without offering surprises. That's what I just mentioned. So, gather together things that change for the same reason and separate from those that change for a different reason. Gather requirements with a healthy degree of skepticism, understand the problem statement, and find a solution, and just keep iterating. We logically grouped our capabilities into 4 buckets: buy, sell, commerce, and developer. Buy APIs enable purchasing eBay items from anywhere online, from any partner's experience, without visiting eBay. Sell APIs enable sellers to manage their eBay business at scale. Commerce APIs have capabilities that span across both buy and sell activities. And finally, developer APIs have capabilities that provide insights to developers into their integration with our APIs, like progress to rate limit. The easiest, and I usually say the cheapest way to do APIs is to design intuitive and straightforward contracts. APIs are interfaces for people. They are for human developers. So the API design should be developer-centric and focused on the consumption with an outside-in perspective. There is intelligence beyond artificial that still matters. By providing consistent, predictable, and understandable names, the APIs tell their story and make documentation redundant to a great extent. The goal is to integrate with APIs without spending too much time on documentation, basically studying documentation or filing developer technical support tickets. If developers cannot access your APIs within 5 minutes, there is something wrong going on. So let your APIs tell their story. Introducing accurate terminology and non-ambiguous use of nouns and verbs helps to achieve vocabulary consistency across the APIs. So provide predictable and understandable names across your APIs. This for sure makes APIs intuitive and easy to discover and consume. URI is a sentence where resources are nouns and HTTP methods are verbs. Standardize what needs to be standardized. For our APIs, we have standards defined, but we are flexible on the how part, because standards define the behavior, not the implementation choices. Standards must be testable. Otherwise, it's not scalable to test all APIs manually. There should be a way to measure this. At eBay, we have a concept of compliance levels defined, and all of the core standards are mandatory for releasing APIs. Standards define what is constant across services. They define the good citizen API. If at least one of the APIs from your portfolio is not the good citizen API, that for sure will impact integration with your APIs. So, standards definitely ensure consistency across the APIs. And I will go over some of them: URI scheme, quality levels like alpha, beta, versioning, error handling, paginated collection, resources, deprecation, and so on. Further, we relied on existing patterns because somebody has already solved your problem. We established our own, all in order to avoid reinventing the wheel on every new API. This helped to ensure consistency and also to improve speed and agility during the development phase. Typically, the problem consists of a goal and a set of constraints, and pattern is an acceptable solution when there is a balance between the goal and the constraints. As I just said, a pattern solution is acceptable only when there is a balance achieved between the goal and the constraints. If all you have is a hammer, then every single problem looks like a nail. Try not to follow that. Use the pattern only when it makes sense. Sometimes it's difficult for engineers. They just want to stay within their comfort zone and use the same tool all over again. It takes time to assess the value of the APIs, to understand whether releasing an API was a success or a failure. It is essential to embrace change and emphasize an API ecosystem that is flexible and adaptable. So whenever it is challenges to meet developers' needs, the API owners should change the perspective and look for a different solution to improve the API portfolio. Typically, there are many ways to solve the problem. And building developer ecosystem is hard. There are so many challenges, technical and beyond. But if done well, such developer ecosystem expands in the right direction. And that is the goal of any organization that provides API solutions. Behind all this, there is a governance process to make sure API teams follow standards. Standards and rules are nothing without the proper process in place. So it's all about making the right choices for your organization. We established a governance process that is objective, transparent, and manageable. Such process ensures the overall API readiness, and it is beyond the API design. It includes everything related to public APIs, such as consistency, vocabulary consistency, documentation, all sorts of cross-cutting concerns, rate limits, authorization, availability to test in some sort of a sandbox environment, evangelism, SDKs, making sure that developer technical support is trained to support the new APIs, and so on. Agreeing on what needs to be done is hard, especially at the beginning. There is a cool saying that I use often. It's easy to be a general after a battle, but when starting with the blank paper, that's where the challenges are. If you have 4 architects in the room, by the end of the discussion, you will have at least 5 suggestions, because at least one of them will change their opinion before the meeting ends. Making sure engineers are following standards, best practices, and patterns is not fun at all. Despite all of the challenges, this is doable. Smart people find some other smart people to fight together. And again, this is all about finding a balance. Forces are always pushing one way or another, so define and enforce your standards, but be flexible on the how part. As I already mentioned, the goal is to create the vision for the APIs, and that includes the technical vision as well. So the governance part is important to ensure that the APIs fit that technical vision. To seek out in the vast API wars is a challenge. So this process should be perceived as an enabler rather than a gate. It is important to understand that the governance process evolves. When we released the first set of our modern RESTful APIs in 2016, we did not pay attention to OpenAPI spec. That came later, and we retroactively fitted it into our process and released OpenAPI documents for all our RESTful APIs. We chose OpenAPI because this is nowadays standardized way to describe API contract. It's vendor neutral. It's both machine readable and human readable. There is a large community behind us with plenty of mature tools, one of them being Swagger, that generates clients in more than 40 technology stacks. We have OpenAPI documents based on both versions of the specs, 2.0 and 3.0, published for all our APIs. We are the first in industry to release OpenAPI documents based on the 3.0 spec, and we are a proud member of the OpenAPI initiative. Forward-looking organizations speak API to inspire innovation and to amplify reach. APIs evolve and grow with the business and open the door to new opportunities. The entire API portfolio is what really brings value to organizations. Individual APIs are not sufficient for developers to innovate because the APIs are powerful when used together. They are building blocks. So the portfolio dimension is what really matters. And I compare integrating with APIs to cooking. We provide healthy ingredients, and it's on our partners to create awesome recipes to delight their customers. As I already called out, eBay is a global marketplace. We have more than 1.5 billion listings, so there is a great inventory selection for buyers around the globe. This includes new everyday items as well as rare goods. If something exists in the world, it is probably for sale on eBay. So everyone could find their version of perfect. But we also support local neighborhoods and communities. Some of our partners are interested only in the inventory within a certain radius, and our APIs support that. Again, APIs are building blocks, and new digital products are created by combining these blocks in a unique way. And this is what we offer to our developers and partners. Via APIs, we made it super easy to our marketplace users to support their favorite charities when they buy or sell on eBay. We are very proud of our eBay for Charity program. We have more than 83,000 charity organizations enrolled on the eBay platform. Our APIs enable finding items that support charities. Our APIs allow sellers to specify how much they want to donate to charities when they list their items for sale on eBay. Basically, everyone benefits when selling for charity on eBay, buyers, sellers, as well as charity organizations. Disruptive forces are very strong in commerce today. Augmented reality is present, artificial intelligence, speech and image recognition, all sorts of self-learning systems, and so on. These innovations have the power to dramatically reshape the buying and selling experience. At eBay, we are exposing such capabilities through APIs. Our search by image and text machine translations are just the beginning. One of the capabilities that are very popular among our public APIs is search by image. We made our image recognition technology available to developers through our API to help build their businesses. developers will now be able to incorporate new computer vision-based eBay features, basically to enable their users to use pictures instead of words. Again, we have more than 1.5 billion listings and an enormous amount of data to train our models. Another example is machine translation. Many people don't realize how important it is to our seller community. We opened the machine language translation technology as an API a couple of years ago to allow our developers to integrate it into their applications and their experiences. As I already mentioned, eBay is a truly global marketplace with 170 million buyers in 190 markets. So our primary goal is to connect buyers and sellers around the world. It is crucial to our community to cross the language barrier and amplify reach. Machine translation is one of the key contributors to promoting cross-border trade. It is a considerable remover of friction. But the true power of the APIs is the underlying technology. The new models are based on an in-house AI technology and state-of-the-art algorithms optimized for the e-commerce context. They translate item description and item title, so they are optimized for the e-commerce context. More than 1.5 billion listings is a massive amount of data to process. Our models are trained to address all of the challenges that seller-provided content brings. And both buy and sell integrations could benefit from translation capabilities. This whole machine translation concept sounds simple, but there are many challenges behind the scene. More than 1.5 billion listings is a massive amount of data and probably a dream of every data scientist. On the other side, challenges are in diverse categories. At eBay, we have more than 20,000 nodes in our category tree. Then brand awareness, Apple brand versus Apple fruit. Then seller-provided content. Sellers could describe their items the way they want. So our models are trained to address all of these concerns. APIs are intermediaries that enable applications to interact. Again, they are building blocks for developers to innovate and to create their own products. On the other side, SDKs are tools that simplify working with such building blocks. Instead of delivering black boxes, we decided to open source our SDKs and to give our partners, our developers, a full transparency into what is going on in their integration with our APIs. And of course, we welcome contributions from our developer community. So our SDKs are consistent with APIs. That's very important because they are tools around APIs. They are maintained and open sourced. API usage analysis is essential to any API program. APIs, of course, must be up and running, so it's important to have monitoring and alerting in place. These are all operational metrics that show how healthy the platform is. Just think of a high-speed train. An electric motor voltage must be within a certain range. On the other hand, business metrics are the reasons the platforms are built. Bullet train is built to transport people. So the API usage analysis is beyond operational metrics only and pure insights into the availability of the API. It is crucial to assess the value the APIs bring and to understand the benefits coming from third-party integrations. Our partners integrate with our APIs, expand our business into new contexts, and bring their customers to us. So it's all about mutual interest. Developer success is your success. And in this whole process, some of the APIs just disappear while some other, flourish. But to understand which way to go, it is a must to look into data. APIs are everywhere. They play an integral role in the digital world by enabling new integration models that empower developers to unlock new opportunities and propel the business in the future. The vision of any API program is a large and powerful ecosystem of developer applications that add value and benefits to organizations. It is essential to be in the game and to follow the right strategy to become a champion. And that's what organizations that speak API are doing. This is all I had for today. Thank you.